Scott Fontana here with the New York Post, here with Jake Aryeh of the New York Post. And we've got to break down what happened in the UFC over the weekend. UFC 293, Sydney, Australia, Saturday midday over there, late night Saturday into Sunday for us over on the East Coast. And a lot of us had a lot of trouble getting to sleep, Jake, because nobody expected not only for Sean Strickland to go in to Sydney and beat Israel Adesanya, but he dominated him. And really from the first round on, how are you coping with kind of this shock to your system?
I don't really know. I still haven't processed it completely. I was talking to you the whole time. Like this is like you said, it's not just that Israel went in there and beat Sean Strickland. He went in there and dominated. It's one thing if anyone's got a puncher's chance. It's happened before where an opening pops up and they just get unlucky and get rocked. But no, in this fight, it really did look like Sean Strickland outstruck one of the best strikers historically in the organization, and he just picked him apart. Kind of like it really seemed like Israel didn't have much of an answer. And in Israel Adesanya's own words, it kind of seemed like he was left there frozen. What did you think watching the fight? How do you assess Sean Strickland's performance?
First off, I have to say that when the fight started to turn around, because really the first round, not a whole lot was happening up until those final 30 seconds where Strickland really connects, sits down on that straight right, and just totally changes the complexion of basically mixed martial arts almost entirely, right? Puts him on deer legs, and we're just kind of watching gawk-eyed as we're trying to see how Adesanya is actually going to get out of this moment. And sure enough, he does. And it's like, okay, that puncher's chance reference. Maybe that's all this was. Hey, that was an opportunity. Or hey, maybe there's something here. And we came back and we had the second round where Strickland didn't really do much. He kind of allowed Adesanya to get back in the fight, but Adesanya never really took the fight back. He really just was given the rope to get back in. He never, over the course of the 25 minutes, ever really got into the fight in a meaningful way. And really by the fifth round, the round that he knew he needed to come back and win and finish at this point, I think he understood the stakes here. He was down on the cards, and in fact, he truly was. He still couldn't put it together. He couldn't find any sort of meaningful offense, and really Strickland looked better than he had for several rounds in round 5. So it was a complete performance. It was a stunning performance. I did not see that coming. At what point did you, while you're watching this, Jake, when did you think to yourself, like, this is actually happening? It's not just like, okay, that one moment happened. It's like, wow, I think he might actually lose this. What time is that?
Yeah, so sure. So starting with that first round knockdown, I initially for about the first second or so that I thought that there was a chance that Adesanya could get finished, but once he got up, I think it was sort of that mindset of just like, okay, it's Adesanya, he's getting up, he's gonna get through this. And then I think at around 4.5 rounds, halfway through the fourth round, I was like, Adesanya's losing this round, and if he doesn't win this round, he needs to knock Sean Strickland out, which is never something that I would think would have happened. It was the least likely scenario, really, was Sean winning by decision, and that's exactly what happened. It was absolutely insane. And yes, in literally the last 10 seconds of the fight, as those seconds were counting down, it was the slowest 10 seconds of my life. I was like one after the other, and finally the horn went, and I was absolutely just stunned, as everyone else was. It's one of the biggest upsets in MMA history, and I guess that leads into, do you think that this is the biggest upset in a title fight in MMA history?
No, it's not. It's definitely a stunner, and I thought about this in the lead up because I proclaimed it wherever anybody would listen that I really thought this would be one of the greatest upsets of all time. I don't think it's quite there. Adesanya was coming off of, yes, a good win, but also before that a loss. He didn't really have that invincible air that he kind of was starting to build up, at least in the UFC for a little while. Even though he had, he got up to 5 and he lost. But admittedly, he felt like he was just leaps and bounds ahead And it looked like he really was from Strickland. But I would say that there are some bigger, more stunning upsets out there. I probably, and it's strangely enough, not the number one upset that happened in the UFC in Australia, because 8 years ago, that was where, of course, Holly Holm knocked out Ronda Rousey, ended that unbeatable run, which everybody kind of bought in at the time. I don't know, most people bought in at the time that she just couldn't lose, and all of a sudden she was rotted out, and that was a true stunner, because she was a star on another level, and who'd almost beaten women before they'd come into the cage. So that's where I would say is especially the biggest upset that I saw live. I wasn't watching MMA at the time that Matt Serra beat George St. Pierre, so I can't include that one for my personal experience, but if anyone wants to put that up there, I get it.
Gotcha. And I guess you kind of talked about some of the past fights that Israel's had, but, up until this one, Israel still was being compared to the likes of Anderson Silva, who, beforehand, without a doubt, was the greatest middleweight of all time. It was thought maybe if Israel beat Sean Strickland that he could take that title, but now that he lost in decisive fashion, what do you think this does for the legacy of Israel Adesanya?
I never thought that it was fair to put him in quite the same breath as Anderson Silva. He was kind of working toward being able to get to that point, but Silva's run, again, for some people who want to maybe discount some of his accomplishments based on the later performance-enhancing drug test that he had failed and that kind of thing, I can understand why people would start to make that as something that dents his legacy, but throw that out the window. Other than that, Anderson Silva did things in this sport that are just so hard to replicate. The run he went on was for years and years, and when he went up in weight, I mean, he went up in weight, and he beat Forrest Griffin 8 months after Forrest Griffin was the light heavyweight champion, and not just beat him, but embarrassed him. It was really the most embarrassing win among elite fighters that I can really remember ever watching. He was a different breed. So I never thought it was fair to put Israel Adesanya in that kind of same level. He's definitely the number 2 middleweight champion in the UFC's history. I would say that's fair, but beyond that, it's tough. Because he's an all-time great that we're watching, but he's on a different level and a lower level, I should say, than Anderson Silva. So Jake, here's the thing we've got to look, because now we got to look forward, right? Everything, we're soaking it in, we're trying to cope with it and understand what happened in the world and make sense of the new world that we live in here. Dana White already has said, I think you do the rematch. Absolutely. He spoke to media after the fight. This was his immediate reaction. Is that a fight that you want to see next, or would you err on the side of Daniel Cormier, who's suggesting, still on the broadcast, but as the fight, as the broadcast was wearing down, that, hey, maybe Adesanya needs to not get an immediate rematch. Maybe he takes a different fight in the meantime.
I gotta go with DC. I agree. I don't think, put it this way, if Sean Strickland did go out there and, have the puncher's chance, just a crazy knockout, like a fluke knockout that people thought was his only path to victory, right? If that had happened, absolutely, I would say give Israel Adesanya the rematch, but that wasn't the case. Sean looked like the better fighter for most of the 25 minutes of that fight, and it wasn't close. But I think that Sean needs to find some other opponents now. There are other challengers who do deserve it, and I think maybe Israel could fight Dricus du Plessis next, and maybe Sean Strickland gets the winner of the Paulo Hamzat fight. Maybe even DDP goes up and faces Sean for the title, since he was next in line already. But what do you think?
I'm of a bunch of different minds here. One thing I think Adesanya should do is take more time off. I'm not the first person to say this, but I think he's been extremely active over a bunch of years. I think it wouldn't be the worst thing even if he did actually get his next fight be for the title, it wouldn't be such a bad thing if there was a fight in between in the division, give him more time to take a break. So would it be Jared Cannonier steps in, who was the backup fighter for this fight? Would it be somebody like the winner of Paulo Costa against Hamzat Chimaev? That's a possibility. Dricus du Plessis too, although I don't know if Dana White is so keen on putting him in there based on the way he was speaking about how he didn't take this fight, because this was the fight that it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Of course. And Adesanya against Dricus Du Plessis. We didn't even get that because Du Plessis had injured, I forget whether he injured in a hand or a foot, but he was out of this fight. And we weren't even really supposed to see this happen at all. And sure enough, here we are. So I wouldn't be opposed to him just taking time, just give himself a little bit of a break mentally, physically, and let himself get back in there. And if he's the next guy who fights for the title at, 8 months from now, a year from now, wouldn't even think that's that bad.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I guess circling back to the bizarre fight that we'd watched, one thing that I'm curious your take on, and I know we're not, like striking analysts or an expert in that area the same way like a Dan Hardy would be, but I am curious, do you think that this was an off night for Adesanya? Eugene Berman said that he had a mental block, which I think we had some evidence to see that, or on the other hand, do you think that Sean Strickland is just that good, and how do you explain what happened?
It's a tough one. It's a tough enough to crack there. Strickland did seem to be hitting a lot more crisp than he was throwing those punches than we have seen. A lot of the punches we've seen from him in the past were not necessarily as committed to dealing some more immediate damage the way he really was. Anytime he really threw his hands, and he was patient throughout the whole fight. He really just waited for Adesanya to give him the openings, and Adesanya would present them very frequently, and he would take advantage and punish them. There was a video somebody put out there of he was Strickland observing Alex Pereira, who they've trained together since the fight where Pereira knocked out Strickland, and it looked like he was kind of teaching him, okay, to just sit out your punches a little bit more. And if that's something that he added to his arsenal a little bit more, I can see how that could have crept in there. So I'm going to say it's probably a combination of Strickland maybe adding a little bit more to his game, making more sense of the skill that he has and sharpening them a little bit. But it really was kind of the same Sean Strickland in a lot of ways as well. So I don't, I think a lot of it was Adesanya just not performing to his ability. Is it because some of that ability is wearing away? Is it because of something mentally? I don't know. But it definitely was not what we would expect him to be able to do. He just couldn't pull the trigger in the same way.